HR issues can kill you. One complaint against your company can turn your world upside down. And you spend way too much time dealing with HR when you should be spending your time on making a profit. You should talk to Bambi. With Bambi, get access to your own dedicated US-based HR manager starting at just $99 per month. They get to know you and your business while providing HR expertise and the personal touch you need and want. They're available by phone, email, and real-time chat, so onboarding and terminations run smoothly. Team members reach peak performance, and your business stays compliant with changing HR regulations. And with Bambi's HR Autopilot, you'll automate important HR practices like setting policies, training, and feedback. HR managers can easily cost $80,000 a year, but Bambi starts at $99 per month. Schedule your free conversation today to see how much Bambi can take off your plate. Go to Bambi.com right now and type in Accelerate under podcast when you sign up. It'll really help the show. Spelled BAM, BEE.com. Bambi.com. Type in Accelerate.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Welcome to Accelerate Your Business Growth with your host, Diane Helbig. Diane is a leading small business development and leadership coach, author, and speaker who is passionate about sharing valuable ideas, tips, and techniques with business professionals worldwide. Diane brings you the world's experts and gurus in all things business. Whether it's sales, structure, social media, planning, or plateauing, guests bring their expertise and energy to each episode. When growing your business is your focus, Accelerate Your Business Growth is the show to listen to. Got a topic or guest suggestion? Let Diane know. The goal is to make sure you have the information you need to move your business forward. Thanks for joining us. Settle in and enjoy.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. Today's podcast is sponsored by Audible.com. Audible.com is a leading provider of spoken audio entertainment and information. Listen to audiobooks whenever and wherever you want. Get a free book when you sign up for a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/businessgrowth. Accelerate Your Business Growth podcast is continuing to enjoy inclusion on lists of the best podcasts to listen to. This is really due to the guests that join me. They have expertise in a variety of business areas, and they give of their time and their knowledge so that you can all do better things in your business. And that is why this podcast continues to gain recognition as a great resource for small business owners, entrepreneurs, and sales professionals. We have such a guest with us today. John Warrillow is joining me. He is an entrepreneur and author with over 20 years of research experience into the small and medium business market. He founded the Value Builder System to level the playing field for business owners as they approach their exit. John's best-selling book, Built to Sell, Creating a Business That Can Thrive Without You, was recognized by both Fortune and Inc. magazine as one of the best business books of 2011 and has been translated into 4 languages. Thanks so much for joining me today, John.
Thanks for having me, Diane.
I am very excited to have you on the show. Actually, back when your book was first written, you were on here and gave some really incredible information. So I am tremendously grateful that you are joining me again to share even more. It's one of the most listened to episodes of all time. So thank you in advance. I'm wondering if you can explain to the listeners why you say the playing field needs to be leveled for small and medium-sized business owners.
Oh, sure. So, I mean, when entrepreneurs go to exit their business, oftentimes they've been running the same business for 10, 20, 30 years, and they know all there is to know about exiting, or all there is to know about running their business, but very little about the exit process. And on the other side of the negotiation table, if you think about it, it's usually a big company executive or private equity company partner, and they're generally experts at buying businesses. Like that's all they do all day long. Whereas we as entrepreneurs, we're, managing people, talking to customers, dealing with, the operations of the business. While we're doing all that, all they're doing is fine tuning the expertise in buying companies. And if that's their job, they are trained at buying low, and they use all kinds of tricks in the book, everything from vendor takebacks to, completely outlandish earnouts and all sorts of tricks to try to get you to give up your business for much less than it's worth. And so that's why we're excited at Value Builder to try to fix that essentially.
Wonderful. Thanks for that explanation. So what is the difference between growing value and growing revenue?
Yeah, great question. So what we've discovered through, I guess now we've done 40,000 different users, different business owners that have gone through Value Builder. We've learned that revenue is a driver of company value, but it's certainly not the only driver of company value. In fact, there are 8 unique drivers of company value, which often, ironically, kind of compete with revenue. So what I mean by that is that if all you wanted to do was grow your top line of your business, you might personally do the selling for your company, right? If you're the founder of your business, you're probably the rainmaker, you're probably the best salesperson. And if you were really focused on top line revenue growth, then you'd probably hit the road and do all the selling for your company. The challenge with that is that it will undermine the value of your business, because a buyer will look at your company and say it's worth nothing without the founder. Founder wants to retire or leave or sell, whatever. There's really nothing for me to buy. And so what makes your business big will also compete with what will make it valuable. Another good example of that would be cross-selling. A lot of companies go about focused on cross-selling because it's 8 or 10 times easier to cross-sell an existing customer than it would be to go out and find a new customer. And while that helps you grow the revenue of your business, it can also undermine the value of your business, because when a buyer buys a company, what they're trying to do is buy something they don't already have. They're trying to buy that one product or service that you've really made a name for yourself on, that you've really differentiated, and to actually compete with you on that product would take a long time or a lot of money to get as good as you are at that one product. But when they see a hodgepodge of products intermingled with that one product, they say, I don't really want to buy those other 50 products or services. What I really want is that one little jewel in the rough. And if we've ever bought, cable television, for example, you know that experience, right? You want HBO or you want ESPN or whatever you want, yet the cable company makes you buy 168 other channels, right? And acquirers hate that experience, right? They want to buy the clean, pure play company, which is doing one thing that's tough to replicate. And that's when you see acquirers pay significant multiples for businesses.
That's fascinating. So a business owner really then needs to be looking at their whole business. Like they need to helicopter up and look at the whole thing and say, okay, what things need to be in place for this business to be valuable when I'm ready to exit? Is that what's going on?
Absolutely. But it's probably well beyond when you're ready to exit. It makes sense to look at your business through the lens of an acquirer way back, decades before you actually want to sell it. And the reason for that is that you make different decisions. I'll give you an example. I did a podcast with a guy who ran an ice cream manufacturing company, right? So he developed a new recipe for, it was actually frozen yogurt, but he developed a really delicious frozen yogurt recipe, started making frozen yogurt. He always dreamed of having retail shops, like ice cream shops. And so he started out and built in the Pacific Northwest dozens and dozens of these ice cream shops. He also got his ice cream into Kroger's and some big retailers. Well, 20 years later, he decided to sell the company, and he went out to the marketplace and says, I think he was a $50 or $60 million company at that point. He said, I've got this great company. We've got this 40, 50 different locations around the Pacific Northwest. We sell in the Kroger's. We're a great business. Crickets. Nobody wanted to buy the business. And he kind of got underneath it to try to find out why. And everybody said, I don't really want a bunch of retail stores, right? Like if the companies he was talking to were other brands, and what they valued in his company was his relationship with Kroger and other big supermarkets. So what they were looking at him as is a way to get into these other major distribution channels. The only buyer he eventually got for the company was a buyer who shut down the 50 ice cream shops the moment they took ownership of the company.
Wow.
So he'd spent decades building this distribution channel that became ultimately worthless. Not only worthless, but actually dragged down the value of his company. It became a bit of an albatross around his neck, just because he wasn't thinking like an acquirer. And so, again, I'm a big believer in thinking about your business through the lens of how would an acquirer think about this decision we're about to make. If we're going to build a new website, how is that going to make our business look to an acquirer? If we're going to hire a new sales manager, what is that acquirer going to see as an asset in the CV or resume of that sales manager? Or what would be a deal breaker for them? Again, it can be decades away from wanting to sell, but it just helps you think about your business in a strategic way, if you will.
Okay. So is this really only something that a business owner who is planning on selling their business needs? Is this an exercise only they need to go through, or do you think any business owner should go through this exercise?
Look, I think it helps for any business owner to go through the exercise. We've done at Value Builder, we survey our customers all the time, and we know that roughly 6 out of 10 business owners plan to sell to a third party. About 2 out of 10 plan to do some sort of management transition where they'll give ownership or sell ownership essentially to the next generation of managers, which is typical in a law firm or accounting firm. And then about 1 out of 10 plan to sell their business to their family member, to like a son or a daughter typically. And so those are the proportions of likely exit scenarios. And under all 3 of those most common exit scenarios, you really want to be passing down a business that an acquirer would want to buy, that's not dependent on you running it. Whether you want to sell to a third party, that's a prerequisite. But even if you want to give it to your kids, the last thing you want to do is give or sell a business that's deeply dependent on you to your kids. It's a recipe for a disaster, both personally and financially.
Yeah, that's huge. Wow. Okay. I'm going to take a quick sponsor break, and then I have some questions for you about these 8 key drivers that you mentioned before. Accelerate Your Business Growth podcast is happy to be sponsored by Audible.com. Audible.com is a leading provider of spoken digital audio entertainment and information. They have over 150,000 titles to choose from, and you can listen to them on any device, including whatever you're hearing us on right now. If you sign up at our link, which is audibletrial.com/businessgrowth, you get 1 free audiobook and a 1-month trial of the service. Some examples of books you can listen to on audible.com are Built to Sell by our guest, John, and The Irresistible Consultant's Guide to Winning Clients by David A. Fields. So visit audibletrial.com/businessgrowth, explore the books that are of interest to you, and receive 1 free audiobook when you sign up for the trial. Today we're speaking with John Warrillow about the 8 key drivers of company value. Okay, so can you talk about some of them? I don't know if we'll be able to do all 8 of them, but can you touch on some more of these key drivers that help a company increase their value?
Yeah, happy to do that for sure. So, so one is the growth potential of your company. So when a buyer looks at your business, they're going to want to know, how do we scale this thing? And for a lot of entrepreneurs, that can be a bit of a head scratcher, because for as entrepreneurs, we're really coming to the finish line of our business when we think about selling it. And maybe we're excited to have reached $1 million in revenue or $10 million in revenue, whatever the kind of milestone is that you've achieved or you wanted to reach. But for the buyer, that's their starting line, right? So if you've reached 10 million, well, congratulations, but the buyer wants to reach 30. And so they want to know, how can we scale this business? And what we found is that the secret to doing that is figuring out your TVR. It stands for teachable, valuable, repeatable. In other words, basically isolating the products and services that you sell today, which meet the criteria teachable, valuable, repeatable. Teachable stands for, can you teach employees to deliver it, or is it something dependent on you? Valuable is in the eyes of the acquirer, meaning valuable in the eyes of the customer, meaning, is it something you're differentiated on offering, or is it just a commodity? And repeatable is it something that customers need to repeat on a regular basis? And when you identify your TVR products and services, it's really about focusing on those, because those are the ones that scale, as opposed to the one-off services that are deeply dependent on you. Those are the ones that can undermine the value of your company. So growth potential is one of the 8 for sure.
Yeah. Boy, I love that TVR. That's fabulous. It's a great way for people to look at their business. Okay, what's the next one?
Well, recurring revenue is a big deal for any acquirer. So, again, they want to know how the one common denominator across all 8 drivers is, how well is your business going to perform when you're not there? And recurring revenue, as one of the other drivers, is a big deal for acquirers, because they want to know, once and whether you're the rainmaker for your company, whether you're the chief salesperson or not, they realize that you're probably fairly influential in the top line revenue of your company. And so what they're looking for is recurring revenue models where there is some form of revenue coming in without you, the founder, or your salespeople having to stimulate it. When I talk a lot about this concept to business owners, oftentimes their mind goes to SaaS companies, software as a service companies, and they think about their subscription to MailChimp or Salesforce.com or Infusionsoft, and they say, "Oh, I get recurring revenue," but that's really for software companies. And what I usually do is tell them the story of H. Bloom, because H. Bloom is in a business that is very far from Silicon Valley. They're in the business of selling flowers. And if you know anything about selling flowers, it is a tough business. It's the moment the farmer cuts the flower off the stem, it starts to die, right? And so typical flower store in America throws out literally garbage is more than half of its inventory every single month. Why? Because it's essentially dead. It's dead or dying in the fridge, and they can't sell it. So it's got, typical flower stores got really bad, spoilage. They've also got bad economics because they have to buy, expensive foot traffic space. So they rent a space on a high street or in a bank concourse level. So it's expensive to stimulate demand. And then it's seasonal, because if you think about when you buy flowers, it's usually Mother's Day and Valentine's Day, right? Something like a third of all flowers are bought on those 2 days. And so these guys came along, as company H. Bloom, and they said, okay, I get, selling flowers as a business, but I want to do it in a different way. I want to sell flowers on a recurring basis. And so they went to hotels and spas who like to, you've been to these things, Diane, where you have these kind of fresh cut flowers on the reception table. It gives a sort of prestigious image for that spa or that hotel. So they decided to sell to the spas and the hotels the subscription to flowers. And the deal was, look, every 2 weeks, we're going to get rid of the old flowers, because that's a hassle for people who buy flowers from flower stores. I'm going to come and bring new flowers to your location every 2 weeks. I'll send you a commercial grade invoice, and you can get back to the business of running your hotel and not worrying about whether the flowers are wilting or not.
Wow.
That's an example of a business that is in a very traditional space. I mean, retail flower shop can't get any more analog than that. That's been transformed by subscriptions. Typical flower store in America, by the way, will at the average transaction is $29. The typical H Bloom subscriber during their life of their subscription with H Bloom will spend more than $4,500. And so it totally transforms your business to have recurring revenue. Not only does it make it more predictable, typical flower store's throwing out more than half of its inventory. At H Bloom, by the way, they throw out less than 2% because they know how many subscribers they have, right?
Right.
They only buy flowers for the subscribers they have. So it just totally transforms the predictability of your business and ultimately its value in the eyes of an acquirer. But for H Bloom, they're not worried about that right now. They love the predictability of the business model, they love the lifetime value, the profitability, et cetera. So I tell that story just to kind of tell your listeners that, even if they're not in software, even if they're in distribution or manufacturing or retail, there's a way to create some subscription revenue, some recurring revenue, and it can really transform your business.
Well, and one of the things that I love about that is that is looking at your business in a way to make it predictable, as you said, and sustainable, and could have nothing to do with eventually selling it. It just makes it better. It's more cost efficient. It's more profitable. And so selling's down the road, but, using this process and looking at your business this way, whether you choose to sell it or not is sort of secondary, it sounds like.
Absolutely. I used to run a market research business. This goes back 15, 20 years ago. And I used to hate the first day of the month because the first day of the month meant that my profit and loss statement, the revenue line of my profit and loss statement, went to zero, right? Because we would basically go out and sell to customers market research. If you wanted to do 6 focus groups, you could hire us to do that. If you want to do a big quantitative research survey, a big poll, for example, we would do that stuff. And we did it on a classic consulting research project basis where we would pitch a job, we'd win a job, we'd do the job, and then we'd send the invoice. Well, at the beginning of the month, we started every single month from zero, and we'd have to kind of scramble and manufacture revenue each month. Some months we did a great job, other months we did a terrible job. And it was always really stressful. And any project-based company, a company where you're selling hours or time or again, projects, I think can empathize with that sense of dread when the beginning of the month comes, because you got to do it all over again, get back on the hamster wheel and do it all over again. And that's the true, benefit of recurring revenue. It just, obviously it makes your business more valuable, but it's the predictable nature of the revenue. We transformed that company into a subscription business where we did research on subscription. And I just can't tell you how much more enjoyable that was to run compared to a project-based company.
Oh my gosh. I can imagine. Wow. That's crazy. I love this whole concept. And of course, I'm listening to it and thinking about my own business. So I imagine the listeners are doing the same thing. So hit me up with another driver, please.
Yeah, we talk about monopoly control a lot. So that's one of the other 8 drivers. And so monopoly control, it comes from Warren Buffett. Have you ever read his letter to shareholders?
No.
Okay, so Warren Buffett does a letter to shareholders once a year. It's kind of interesting reading for capitalists. And anyways, he usually talks about what his investment criteria is, or criteria are, multiple criteria are for businesses that they buy. And he's got a bunch of different criteria. One of them is a company with a deep and wide competitive moat. And what he means by that is that they have, it's obviously a military analogy where you've got a protective moat around your company, meaning you've got some point of differentiation, some sort of point of differentiation, which gives you pricing authority. Pricing authority means that you can, to some extent, set your price. You're not competing, selling your product by the inch, by the pound, by the yard, where it's a commodity and it's really just a race to the bottom. You've got some point of differentiation. You think of Nike branded shirts. the same shirt, virtually same shirt, can be purchased for 50% less. The only difference is they don't have the Nike logo on it. And so that's a point of differentiation. In this case, their brand. It gives them a bit of pricing authority. When you've got pricing authority, it allows you to invest more in your brand and your marketing and your differentiation. And it kind of thickens and widens your competitive moat. And so acquirers also look for, beyond just Warren Buffett, other acquirers, almost all, in fact, acquirers look for companies with a deep and wide competitive moat. Because one of the things that you've got to kind of put yourself in the shoes, and we try to do that as much as we can here, in the shoes of the buyer, because the buyer, when they look to buy a company, they're making a build versus buy decision, right? So they're not going to tell you this, but they're going to look at your company. They're going to go back to their boardroom and they're going to say, do we really need to buy this company, or can we just compete with them? I mean, could we just kind of lower our prices by 10% and pick up all their business? Because if you're in the commodity business, if you're just selling your business if you're selling customers based on responding to RFPs, or you're just basically selling on bids, they're going to say, we don't need to buy this business. We can simply bid for their jobs and drop our price by 10 points. And we'll pick up all of their business and never write a check to the owner for the company. If, on the other hand, you've got something different that would take them a long time or a lot of money to replicate, that's when they say, okay, that's worth buying. Like when Microsoft bought LinkedIn, as an example, like Microsoft could have built their own social network. Like they've got a lot of deep software engineers at Microsoft. They could have built their own social network, but they made the decision to buy LinkedIn for $26 or $24 billion, because to replicate LinkedIn, there's a network effect, right? The more people are part of LinkedIn, the more people want to be part of LinkedIn. And so to replicate that, it would be just a colossal undertaking, to the tune of, in their calculation, more than $6 billion that they spent on the company. So for very small companies, the local flower shop, the local retailer, the local manufacturing company, buyers are making the same decision. It's on a much smaller scale, but they're saying, is this guy got anything that we really need to buy, or do I just want to compete with him or her? And if the answer is I'll just compete with them, then they're not going to buy your company.
Do you think that, or do you find that identifying their real differentiator is something that small business owners struggle with?
Yeah, because they all. Yeah. So what we use, we have a whole methodology we take business owners through who are interested in figuring out what their monopoly control is. But when they come to us at the beginning, typically business owners say, well, what makes us unique is our customer service. We really know our customers and we deliver great customer service. And so that's really what makes us unique. The problem with customer service is it's not a marketing point of differentiation, because by definition, to experience customer service, you have to experience it. To believe it's different, you have to experience. You have to be a customer. So while customer experience can keep customers, and it's important for retaining customers and getting them to repurchase something, it's not a marketing point of differentiation. It's not something that you can go out and claim until people claim with any authenticity until people actually experience it. For a marketing strategy to have teeth, it's got to be important to customers, number one, and make you different, right? So we can all list off a bunch of criteria that customers look for in whatever product or service you sell, right? It's got to be reliable, fast, cheap, whatever the list of things that customers care about. Everybody can list that. Most entrepreneurs can list off the list of 5 or 6 things that customers care most about. But then you have to ask yourself, does that make us unique? Or is that essentially something that all of our competitors also say? And so the real job for figuring out your monopoly control is figuring out not only, number one, what customers really want when they make a decision to buy our product or service. That's the number one job you got to do. Great. You'll probably come up with a list of 5 or 10. But then the next job is, okay, on which of these are we truly different? Because that's the one where you've got the underpinnings or the raw material of a marketing proposition. Otherwise, you're just a table stake. You're competing on the same, like every plumber in Toronto, which is where I'm located, competes on reliability. Well, that's great
Yeah.
if you're reliable.
Right.
It's important to customers that you're reliable, but it doesn't make you different. So it's not a
Right.
marketing proposition. So it's your marketing proposition has got to meet those two criteria. It's got to make you different, but it's also got to be something customers care about.
Yeah, that is huge. And it was funny. I was laughing when you said they all say our customer service sets us apart. I mean, everybody says that because everybody
Right.
thinks that.
It's like our, our HVAC, our customers make the difference, or been in business since 1943, or, our customers are our success, or what, like you've seen these sort of positioning statements. They look like 1970s, like cereal boxes. They're not marketing propositions. They're things that should be retired. They may be important to you as like business owners are deeply proud of the customer experience they offer. And I get it. But to build a company that someone would want to buy, you can't say we're different because we offer great customer service. Because again, the part of why you offer great customer service is probably because you as the founder ensure that customer service is amazing. It's you who deeply love your customers, right? It's you who follow up with the frontline people and say, did you solve the problem for Bob or Susie? It's you who are passionate about your name being on the door and then offering great service. Take you out of the equation and there's nothing there anymore, right? And so that's why acquirers, when they look at your business and they say, oh, the guy's been differentiated on customer service, it just makes people yawn and think, okay, next.
Right.
Because it's your passion that has enabled that great customer service, but you take you out of the equation. That's not a point of differentiation.
I think this is one of and I think this is one of the biggest things that I am hearing you say is that business owners have to make sure that their business can run without them. Otherwise, it doesn't have value to someone who wants to acquire it.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah. That really is the, if you were to distill our whole conversation down to a single idea, it's easier said than done. Clearly I've run a few businesses. I know how hard that is. But we've got this sort of methodology that we take people through that makes it kind of, I don't want to say easy, but there's a recipe, right? You start off and you figure out your TVR. That's the first thing you do in our methodology because that's what gives you the platform to get yourself personally extricated from the delivery of your product because you're figuring out what's teachable. Once you've done that, you've got to figure out your recurring revenue model. That gives you the recurring revenue. Once you've got that, you get into monopoly control. Like it is a sequential set of steps you can take. It's not like you have to do all of this at once, but there, it's a process you've got to go through to build a more valuable company.
Okay, so speaking of which, so thank you. And I knew we weren't going to get through the 8, but I was sort of intentional about that because I want people to reach out to you. So will you tell people how they can get in touch with you and, about the Value Builder system, please?
Yeah, the very best thing is to get your Value Builder score. That's going to give you a score on the 8 key drivers of company value. So you're going to go through a questionnaire. It takes about 15 minutes, and it's going to give you a score on the things we talked about today, a score on monopoly control, a score on recurring revenue, a score on growth potential. And that's going to be your first step. It's free. You can just go to valuebuilder.com/score.
Okay. That's fabulous. Thank you. And thank you so much for the information. This is such an interesting topic and not one, we have on very often, but I think it's so important, whether you're thinking about selling your business or not. That's sort of a secondary thing. Going through this exercise can really elevate your business and change the whole, success arc that you are on. So pay attention, go over to valuebuilder.com/score and start that process and then reach out to these guys. So John, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Diane. It was great to be with you.
Awesome. I'd like to thank the listeners and our sponsor. Remember to visit audibletrial.com/businessgrowth If you would like to get a free trial of audible.com as well as a free audiobook when you sign up for that trial. As always, remember to prosper and be curious. And until we meet again on another episode of Accelerate Your Business Growth, goodbye and good day.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
The average person experiences up to 10,000 marketing efforts each day. Those ideas are culled from millions of possibilities. The CMO Confidential podcast takes you behind the scenes to learn about the decisions, drama, politics, and glory that go with one of the most scrutinized jobs in the executive suite, the Chief Marketing Officer. Guests from all over the business world join Mike Linton, a 5-time CMO, to share stories about what it's really like in the marketing universe.